Good evening, grade 11s, and welcome back to another session with Mascu Miller Learning and Mascu TV. And today our focus point will be exam type questions for algebra. Now remember, algebra, personally I think, is the backbone, it is the heart of mathematics, because all other topics like functions, trigonometry, Euclidean geometry, right? We have algebra that is inculcated into all of those topics. So it's very important that we have a very good understanding of algebra. Okay, so before we can go ahead and answer the questions, we want to check what our objectives are in this lesson. Our objectives are to use the quadratic formula to find the solution to any quadratic equation, how to solve inequalities and presenting the solutions, and then we're going to generally solve algebraic problems. Now, something new to you in grade 11. Now in grade 9 and in grade 10, we were taught how to factorize trinomials, or how we needed to solve quadratic equations, okay? And what we need to understand is that all the equations that were given to us to factorize or to solve, it were all equations or trinomials that were able to factorize, all right? So the quadratic formula, a brand new formula that is introduced to you or was introduced to you or will be introduced to you in grade 11. And what do we use this formula for? We use this formula to find the solutions. Now the solutions can either be your x coordinates, it can be your roots, or it can be your x-intercepts for any quadratic equation, right? Now in red and in bold, what do I have there? There I have the standard form of any quadratic equation, right? So a quadratic equation needs to be in the form ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0. Now many a times they don't give us our equations in standard form, and our first task would be to get the equation in standard form, because once the equation is in standard form, we can just read from the equation what a is, what b is, and what c is. All right, so here is our formula. A very popular, this formula will become very, very popular, right, as you go on in grade 11 and in grade 12. So it is given by minus b plus or minus. Plus or minus mean I'm going to have one calculation with plus, another one with minus, the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. For those of you who are familiar, if you have time, you can actually find out how this equation was derived. It was derived from, how this formula rather was derived. It was derived from this equation using completing the square. So in your spare time, in your free time, play around, use completing the square, and you will see how we will get this formula coming from this equation over here. Okay, so please, girls and boys, you must familiarize yourself. You must memorize this formula. In most cases, they do not give you the formula. You will get 1 mark for just putting down the formula, and then another mark for substitution, and then another mark or another 2 marks for your final answers for your 2 solutions of x, okay? So let's get right into it, right? Now, I'm going to give you an example. So here's the question. The question says we need to solve for x. So the equation given is 5x squared plus 7x minus 9. So here I notice number 1, it is in standard form. An example of it not being in standard form can be as follows. They can give us 5x squared plus 7x, right? And then here we can have is equal to 9, right? They can give us this, and they can tell us answer correct to 2 decimal places. But our first responsibility would be to get it into this form over here. So then I would go 5x squared plus 7x minus 9 is equal to 0. Okay? Now, once it is in standard form, I can go ahead and I can read off exactly what A, what B, and what C is, right, from the equation that is given to me. Okay? So the coefficient of x squared is what a will be, all right? So in this case, I have a, So in this case, I have a to be 5. The coefficient of x will be b, right? So here we can see that b is equal to 7. And be very careful, sometimes we have a negative here, so then the coefficient of x will just be a negative number. And then the constant term is negative 9, and your constant term is what c represents, okay? So in this case, c will be equal to negative 9. And once I have a, b, and c, I can now just take this and I can substitute it into my formula. I can just put it in my calculator, and there I have the marks, okay? But it is very important for us to first ensure that the equation is in its standard form, firstly, right? And then secondly, we need to make sure that we, and especially if we're starting out with this equation, we write down what A, B, and C is, because sometimes we take for granted that we are familiar with substitution, or we are very familiar with what A, B, and C could possibly be, and that's how we make the mistakes, okay? So step number one, you write the formula down, okay? I want to give you a hint here. It is saying answer correct to 2 decimal places. Whenever it is saying answer correct to 2 decimal places, that is where you will use the quadratic formula. And why are we using this formula? It means that if we're going to try any method of factorization, all right, to solve this problem, it will not work at all. It will not work at all. So it then forces me to use the quadratic formula to find out what the solutions of x actually is, right? So to answer A, step number one, I'm going to write down my formula, right? So x is equal to minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. See, you need to know it by heart, right? So let me just make that a bit bigger. So remember, I've written down what A, B, and C is. So what I now do is I just merely substitute it into the equation, right? So now I'm going to say that x is equal to minus, so my negative I need to leave there. What is B? B is 7. So I say minus 7, all right? Now we have plus and minus. So first I do plus and then I do minus. So I'm first going to go plus, right? Or you can go plus or minus, and then in the end, you can just give your 2 solutions, all right? So I'm going to use square root. Now, what is B? B is 7, right? And remember, it is always a good idea, especially when you're dealing with squares or cubes or negatives, when you are doing substitution, it is to put whatever you are substituting in brackets, okay? So I'm going to put the 7 squared in brackets, right? Minus 4. So the 4 is part of my formula. What is A? A is 5, so I'm going to put 5 in there. I'm going to substitute 5. And then I have C. I can see that C is negative 9. I substitute negative 9 in the bracket. And that is all over 2. Now what is A? A is 5. All right? So there I will get a mark for substitution. All right? So I get 1 mark for writing down my formula by heart. A 2nd mark for correct substitution, If I'm going to substitute anything incorrectly, unfortunately, it will affect my answer and I will get the answer wrong, okay? So I'm going to have 2 solutions, a plus and a minus. So I'm going to pick up my calculator, and you can do this with me, grade 11s, and you can check whether we have the same answers, all right? So I have negative 7. I'm first going to put plus in my calculator, right? So I have plus, then I'm going to open my square root, and I'm going to go 7 squared minus 4 times 5 times negative 9 over 2 times 5. All right? So you will get something like this, right? You will get negative 7 plus square root of 229 over 10. All right? But girls and boys, this isn't what we want, because the question instructed us to give our answer correct to 2 decimal places. So I need to press the SD button on my calculator to convert it into a decimal, right? And it's very important that we understand how to round our decimals. Otherwise, we're going to get our answer wrong, right? So if I press SD, my first solution for x will be 0.81. But I want to show you something. So what I actually have here is 0.8132. If it's asking for 2 decimal places, I need to look at the 3rd number. If this number is 43210, then it remains 1. Okay? If the 3rd number is 56789, and then the 2nd number just increases by 1 unit. And this is why I'm leaving my answer as 0.81. Okay? All right. Now all I do is, girls and boys, while I still have my workings in my calculator. Where the plus is, I just put a minus in place of the plus, right, to give me my second solution. So now I have a minus, and if I press SD, so I say or x will be equal to negative 2, 2, 1, because the number after this, because after this I would have 3, right? So it means it won't affect this 1 anyway. But remember, you actually have or. So remember, I have the same thing over here. So I have x is equal to minus 7. So instead of plus, I have a minus. Then here I will have the square root of 229 over 10. And if I punch this in my calculator, I will get that solution over there. And this, girls and boys, is, I think you can see it is very simple. You just need to understand your quadratic formula. You need to understand that you must first get it into standard form. Once it's in standard form, I identify A, B, and C. Once I've identified A, B, and C, I then just substitute it into my equation, and then I am done, okay? I've left one for you to do in your own free time, okay? And then I want to show you by C, maybe I'll examine the fields that Yoshi is in the mood to add some fractions. So what if I'm faced with a fraction, right? So what if I'm given this over here? What if I'm given 2 over 3 x squared minus 5 over 2 x plus a quarter is equal to 0, okay? There's two things you can do here. First thing I need to check, is it in the form ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0? Yes, it is. Because I have a, so here's my a, right? So here I have my a, there's my x squared. Remember, this doesn't have to be a plus, but it's plus or minus. So it's b, so that is my b value over there. And then c is what? A quarter. So in this case, I can see that a, let me rather make it white, so we can see better. So here I can see that a is equal to 2/3. I can see that b, very important, is negative 5 over 2, right? And then c is equal to a quarter. But if I'm going to have to substitute fractions into a formula, which is already a fraction, it can be very messy, and I can make a mistake very, very easily. So what I would advise is, I would advise you to first get rid of what? Of the fraction. Right, get rid of the fraction, so I can work with whole numbers. In that way, it is easier for me to just substitute it into the formula, right? So again, this here is correct, but how can I get rid of the fractions? I can find my LCD, isn't it so? The lowest common denominator between 3, 2, and 4 is what? 12. Yes, 12 is the lowest common multiple, or the lowest common denominator, right? And how does it work? If my LCD is equal to 12, there's many ways I can do it, but a very easy method to use, I can just say that 12 divided by 3 is what? 4, and then 4 times 2 is what? 8. So I can say 12 divided by 3 is 4, right? And then that answer 4, I need to multiply by the numerator. In this case, the numerator is 2 and x squared, right? So it's 2 and x squared, right? Minus 12 divided by 2 is what? 6. And then that I will multiply by my numerator. In this case, it is 5x, so 5 and x, plus 12 divided by 4 is what? 3. And that 3 I will just multiply by my numerator, which is 1, and that will be equal to 0. And if I simplify this, I will get 8x squared minus 6 times 5 is 30x, plus 3 times 1 is 3, equal to 0. Look now, girls and boys, I just have whole numbers. So in this case, the coefficient of x squared is 8, so a will be 8. And then b, coefficient of x, is negative 30. And then c is my constant term. C will be equal to 3. If I use these fractions, I will get the same answer, but I just think it will be so much easier for me to get rid of the fraction and to substitute that into it, okay? Right. That is the quadratic formula. You will see it a lot, okay? Solving inequalities is another new thing that there's a new part that you learn in grade 11, all right? And just a few steps to understand or to know before we solve inequalities, right? Simplify if necessary and then factorize. By simplify, we mean if there are any brackets, get rid of the brackets. If there are any fractions, try to get whole numbers, etc., etc. All right? Then we're going to use factorization. We know factorization can be the common factor. It can be the difference of two squares. It can be the trinomial. It can be the sum and difference of two cubes. You know, there are many methods of factorization we can use, right? We're going to solve the trinomial the standard way, right? And then make our right-hand side 0. And by that, we're going to find what we call the critical values. And then obviously, a very important point to understand with inequalities is when we're dividing or multiplying by a negative, and then the sign of the inequality must change. So if it looks like that, if I divide by negative, it will go in that direction. And if it's given in this direction, if I multiply or divide by a negative, and then it will go to that direction over there, okay? All right, let's move into some examples, right? So A, right, by A, we have x squared minus 3x minus 4 is less than 0, okay? Now, there's many ways in which we can do this, okay? I'm going to show you a method which I think is very, very easy and simple to understand. All right, step number 1, the steps told us, if we can simplify, we simplify. Here's nothing else to simplify, so it's fine. Thereafter, I need to factorize, okay? And this is a very straightforward trinomial. We're going to use a trinomial here to factorize, all right? So here I will have x, and when I have x, the factors of 4 to give me 3 is just 4 and 1, and here I will have negative and positive, okay? Negative 4 plus 1 is negative 3, negative 4 times 1 is negative 4, so I know I am correct, okay? Now, before I go ahead, I need to check here, I need to find critical values, right? So I'm going to solve it as if I was solving an equation where I had the right-hand side equal to 0, right? So if I had x minus 4, right, and x plus 1 is equal to 0, right? Okay, there's not space for my 0, right? Let me just redo it here. So I'm going to go x minus 4 and x plus 1 equal to 0, right? We know there's a law in mathematics that tells us if A times B is equal to 0, and then A will be equal to 0, or B will be equal to 0, all right? So here we have x minus 4 equal to 0, or x plus 1 equals 0. So my critical values will be given by, if I have x minus 4 equals 0, I must just carry the 4 over. So then x will be equal to 4, right? And then my other critical value will just be negative 1, okay? Sorry, the space is not so nice over here. So I'm going to say my critical values are as follows. So x will be equal to 4, and x will be equal to negative 1. Now, I want you to look at this x squared minus 3x minus 4, and I want you to think of a parabola, okay? Because remember, we can, this x squared minus 3x minus 4 can be a standard trinomial which could represent a parabola which has 2 roots, okay? Now, whenever, remember that here I have a. Now, if a is positive, then what is my parabola? Is it a smiley face or a sad face? It is a smiley face, all right? And if this value over here is negative, if a is negative, and then obviously I will have a sad face. But it is given to me that a over here is positive, right? So I can just draw a positive parabola, a smiley face parabola, okay? Now, all I do is I take my negative number, or my smallest number, not my negative, sorry, because both can be negative. I take my smallest number and I place it on the left. So there I put negative 1. And I take my bigger number of the 2, which is 4, and I put it over there. Okay? Are you following? Now, look what's happening here. So remember, you need to understand that this part over here is actually what? Y. This actually here is y. And y is what? Below 0, right? Now, where's below 0? So this is 0 basically here. So below 0 is what? It is this area over here. So obviously, Can you see here, it is between two values, right? So the solutions for x, it only exists between these two x values over here, right? So y is below 0, it is below the origin, right? So I'm only working with this area over here. I'm not interested in that area over there. And once it's below, automatically I know I am working with, or I'm working between two values. Now, a very easy way to do this, girls and boys, a trick you can learn, you put the smaller number down first. Right, let me change that to a pin. You put the small number down first, which is -1. You put the bigger number down, which is what? 4. Okay. You put x in the middle, and then you can see here that x is what? Greater than -1. So that must be greater. And then from here, I only have values existing to the left. So it means x is what? Less than 4. And that, girls and boys, is how I have answered the first question on inequalities, all right? So step number 1, factorization. Step number 2, find your critical values. Step number 3, draw your parabola. Step number 4, check whether y is above or below. If it is below, it will be between two values. If it is above, it is going to be two separate values, okay? So I've deliberately chosen another example, okay, which will be slightly different, okay? And by this one, we have x squared plus 5x plus 6 is less than or equal to 0. Step number 1, I'm going to do factorization, right? I'm going to factorize this. This is very easy. So I have x there and I have x there. The factors of 6 to give me 5 will be 3 and 2, and both will be positive because I have both positive over there, all right? Let me erase that. I can always double check it, so I can go 2 plus 3 is 5, and 2 times 3 is 6. All right, so I hope you guys have found your critical values already. All right, so my critical values, right, if I'm going to say x plus 2 equals 0 or x plus 3 equals 0, I will get x to be -2, or I will get x to be -3. All right, there I have my critical values. All right, next step is what? Sketch my parabola. A is positive, so I draw my parabola, right? Check here, both values are negative, so my parabola will look something like that. Both is on the negative side, right? So I have -3, the smaller number first, and then I will have -2 over there, okay? -3, and I will have -2, okay? Let me just move this up so I can get some more space, okay? Right, so it is telling me now again that x is less than, so again it is in this area over here because this here is just y, right? So I'm just working in this area, so I'm just working between the two numbers. So if it's between the two numbers, I put -3 down, I put the smaller number down first, then the bigger number I put down over there, I put x in the middle, right? And x is what? Greater, it's going to the right, so x is greater than -3, but and equal to, because I have a line drawn underneath, and then x will be, it's going to the left of -2, so x will be less than or equal to -2. And that, girls and boys, is a very simple way of how we can solve inequalities. All right, now, what I have on the board is a DBE paper from the Department of Education's website. You can find it on the website. We're looking at November 2018, right? And this covers a variation of questions for algebra. It covers almost everything, okay? Now remember, the point here isn't for us to memorize what's happening, it's for us to understand what's happening, right? So we're gonna go straight into 1.1.1, right? And I think before I get into 1.1.1, I will give you guys a minute to just read over this, and then we will see you after the break. All right, welcome back, grade 11s. We've taken some time to read through the questions which they want us to answer. Now, very important for us to read our instruction. The first question says solve for x. So we are interested in finding out what the values of x are. All right. So here, my first question is given on the board, 2x minus 3, x plus 7 equal to 0. Please do not go ahead and multiply this out. Why? Because we know if we have two factors that are multiplying by each other, so here's my first factor. All right, so here's my first factor and there's my second factor. If they are multiplying by each other and they both are equal to 0, it means that one factor is 0 or the other factor is 0. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to take my one factor, which is 2x minus 3. I'm going to make it equal to 0. Or my other factor, which is x plus 7, it will be equal to 0. Now this is just a very simple solve for x equation. So I'm going to carry my negative 3 over as plus 3. I will divide both sides by 2. And 2 divided by 2 is 1. And 1 times x is just x. So x will be equal to 3 over 2. Or x will be equal to, if I carry my plus 7 over, I will get negative 7. 2 marks. 1 mark for your first solution and 1 mark for your second solution. Okay? Right. 1.1.2. This seems very familiar. It's telling us, solve for x if 7x squared plus 3x minus 2, let me just make that x a bit neater. So 7x squared plus 3x minus 2 is equal to 0. Look what they are saying. Leave your answer correct to 2 decimal places. And I just reiterated in the first slide that if they are telling us this in brackets, it is telling us please use the quadratic formula to solve your problem, right? So step number 1, a good practice. Write down the values of a, b, and c. In this case, a is 7, b is 3, and c is negative 2. Now I write down my quadratic formula. So x is equal to minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. All right. So now I'm going to substitute my values. So x is now therefore equal to minus, what is b now? It is 3, okay, plus square root of, in brackets, what is b? b is 3. So I'm going to go 3 squared minus 4. What is a? A is now 7. Substitution is easy. We must just know the quadratic formula. All right. C is equal to negative 2 over 2. What is a? A is 7. There we go. All right. So now I'm going to go x is equal to, girls and boys, I can just punch this directly into my calculator to get my 2 solutions for x. I'm going to leave that plus and minus for now. So I'm going to go fraction minus 3. I'm going to start with plus square root, open bracket. So I'm going to go 3 squared minus 4 times 7 times negative 2. I'm going to close my bracket, all over 2 times 7. Right? So here I get negative 3 plus root 65 over 14. So here I must have an or x is equal to negative 3. In place of the plus, I put a minus root 65 over 14. Right? So if I press SD, I will get 0,36 for my first solution for x. Right? And for my second solution, I'm going to put a negative there. And if I put a negative there, I will get my answer to be negative 0,79. Okay? So I'm checking, I have 3 marks. So 1 mark will be for the formula, 1 mark for substitution, and 1 mark if both your solutions are correct. Or maybe they've given you 1 mark for correct substitution, which meant that you should have had your formula correct, and then 1 mark for the 2 solutions each. Okay? All right. Now, very important, they will ask it in every grade 11 exam, is 1.1.3, which is a surd equation, right? It's an equation with a surd in, all right? So I have 1.1.3. Right, so the question there is the square root of x minus 1, and then I have plus 3 is equal to x, okay? Okay, let's make that a bit neater. is equal to x. So what do I want to do? What's the first step? Here, always, whatever term contains the radical expression or the root or the surd, you leave it on the left-hand side or even on the right-hand side, okay? So I just want to leave my x minus 1 on the left-hand side, okay? Everything else, I'll just take over. So I leave my x over there, my plus 3, I carry over as negative 3, okay? Now I ask yourself the question, what is creating me problems here, okay? This square root over here is creating problems for me. And if I can get rid of my square root, a big part of my problem will be solved. And what is a way for me to get rid of a square root? It's just to square, correct? All right? So I'm going to square this side. But obviously, what I do on the left, I need to do on the right as well, okay? And once I've squared that surd, automatically the square root is now gone. So I'm just left with x minus 1, all right? Now on the right-hand side, I have x minus 3 square. I'm now squaring a binomial, right? Because I have two terms over there. So we know if we do it on the side, this is actually x minus 3, and it is x minus 3. And you know it's x times x, x times negative 3, but there's also the shortcut you can use. You can just take the first term and you square it, right? So x squared is just x squared. Keep that negative sign there. Let me just erase that because it looks like a division. I keep the negative sign. What is 3 times x? You multiply the 2. It is 3x. Then you double it. It will give you 6x. Your last term is always positive. And then 3 squared is what? 9. Okay? If you use the FOIL method over there, you will come to the same solution. Right? So what am I going to do now? I want to make the right-hand side equal to 0. Right? So I'm going to write this part down first. So I'm going to go x squared minus 6x plus 9. Okay? I'm going to change the sign because I'm taking it over. So plus x become minus x. Minus 1 become plus 1. And now I make it all equal to 0. Because now I'm looking to use factorization. Okay? I only have one term containing x squared, so I leave it as x squared. Right? Where are my terms containing x? Here's a term containing x. And there's a term containing x. Negative 6x minus x is negative 7x. Right? And now my numbers, I have a 9 and a 1. That gives me plus 10. And I make that equal to 0. Okay? And now I have a perfect trinomial here now, right? I have a perfect trinomial. Guess what? You can use the quadratic formula to factorize this trinomial, but this is an easy one. So I just have x and x. The factors of 10 to give me 7 is what? So 1 and 10 can't give me 7, but 2 and 5 can, right? So I'm going to use 5. I'm going to use 2. And both here is minus. Why is that? Because negative 5 minus 2 is negative 7. Negative 5 times negative 2 is positive 10. All right? So now x minus 5 is equal to 0, or x minus 2 is equal to 0. So therefore, x will be equal to 5, or x will be equal to 2. Okay? But, very important, both these solutions do not satisfy this equation. I need to go and check which one satisfies the equation. So it doesn't mean if I found two solutions that both solutions will satisfy the equation. All right? So I'm now going to go and check. So I can do it on the side, or I can even do it on my exam paper. It doesn't matter. I can show my examiner that I'm checking. So I'm going to check for x equals 5. So when x is equal to 5, let's check what I get over there. So I go to my original sum, and I'm going to substitute 5 in place of x. Okay? So here I will have 5 minus 1 plus 3 equals, in place of x, I will now have 5. All right? So 5 minus 1 is what? The square root of 4, right? Plus 3 is equal to 5. Square root of 4 is 2. 2 plus 3 equals 5. And 2 plus 3 is 5. So I can see on my left and on my right-hand side I get 5. So clearly 5 is working, right? If I'm going to check 2, if I'm going to substitute 2, I know it won't work already, but let me check it, right? So if I put 2 in place of x, I will have 2 over here minus 1, 2 minus 1 plus 3 is equal to, x is what now? 2. So 2 minus 1 is just the square root of 1 plus 3 is equal to 2. Square root of 1 is just 1 plus 3 equals 2. 1 plus 3 is 4. Is 4 and 2 the same number? No, it is not. So it means that 2 over here cannot be a solution to this equation, and therefore x is equal to 5 only. You can even say the word only. X is equal to 5 only. If you're going to leave x equal to 2 there, you will lose a mark because we don't have two solutions satisfying the equation. I only have one solution that satisfies the equation. All right. Now, 1.1.4, something familiar. We've dealt with inequalities just before this. I don't know it's inequality because of that symbol over there. But this one looks slightly different to the examples that we have done. Okay, let's go and discover what is so different about this one. All right. So here I have 3, and here I have x plus 6, all right? What was my first step when I gave you inequalities? I told you, you need to simplify where possible, meaning get rid of any brackets that there are, right? There's a bracket. How do I get rid of brackets in maths? I just do multiplication, right? So here I have x squared, right? I leave that there. 3 times x is 3x. 3 times 6 is 18. Okay, what do I want? I want 0 on the right-hand side at all times, right? So I always want 0 on the right-hand side. So the x squared, I can leave there. I'm bringing the 3x over. That becomes negative 3x. I'm bringing the plus 18 over. That's becoming negative 18. Okay, right. What do I have here now? A beautiful trinomial, which I can factorize beautifully. All right, so I have x and I have x. What are the factors of 18 to give me 3? 1 times 18 can't give me 3. 2 times 9 can't give me 3. But 3 times 6 can give me 3. Okay, so I'm going to use 3 and 6. So I put 6 there and I put 3 there. All right, so here I will have negative and I will have positive because negative 6 plus 3 is negative 3. Negative 6 times 3 is negative 18. So now on the side, I'm going to find my critical values, right? So if x minus 6 is 0, so x will be equal to 6, right? Or x will be equal to negative 3, all right? A over here is positive, so I will have a smiley face for my parabola. I'm going to have a smiley face over there. What did I tell you? Put your smallest number on the left-hand side, put your bigger number on the right-hand side. But now, this one is a bit different. Can you see here, this area, which is y, is above 0. It is above 0, not below 0. So we're looking at this area over here, right? And if you look very carefully, you just need to be careful over here. If it's above 0, it's not obviously in between. We're not talking about values that are in between two certain numbers, right? Because we can see this line is here, then it stops, it has no connection, and then all of a sudden I have the line continuing there in the area where y is greater than 0. So it means I will have two separate solutions for x, okay? Very, very simple. So all I will do is I will say x. You can see this line over here is going to the left, right, for infinity. So what is to the left? It is less than. So x is less than negative 3, or from this line over here, it is going to the right, to infinity. And to the right is what? Greater than. So I can say, or x is greater than 6. And that, girls and boys, is how I did this one over here. The previous two I've done, we had the solutions between two values. So I write it as one inequality. Here I can see that I just have this line starting over here, right? It is disconnecting, and then all of a sudden it connects again. So that means that I have two separate solutions for x, okay? I think time will allow us to go through another question, right? Which is a simultaneous equation. Again, a question which is always asked in every exam. So it is very important that we know how to do it, right? So remember, a simultaneous equation, it is two different equations given to us. So my first equation is 2y plus x, not 1. My first equation is 2y plus x equal to 1. And my second equation, so that's equation number 1, right? My second equation is x squared plus y squared plus 3xy plus y is equal to 0. And this here is my second equation. Now here I'm obviously going to use the substitution method, not the elimination method, because substitution here is so much easier. Why is it easy? Because if I look at my first equation, right, I can write that equation, right, in terms of x, okay? I can write it in terms of x, all right? So I can make x subject of the formula. So if I look here, why am I choosing x? Because x has a coefficient of 1, right? It has a coefficient of 1, so I can just easily substitute whatever x is in place of y in my second equation. So step number 1, for substitution method, I create a third equation. Which equation do I choose? I choose an equation where I can see the coefficient of x or y is just 1, which in this case is equation number 1. So I'm going to use equation number 1 to create equation number 3. So I will say that x is equal to 1, and then the plus to y goes over as minus to y. So that over there is my third equation, right? So if I used equation number 1 to create equation number 3, then I will substitute equation number 3 into equation number 2. So that means now wherever I see x, I'm going to put 1 minus 2y. And look here, I start off with x. So in place of x, I must have 1 minus 2y. All right, so look here, in brackets obviously, 1 minus 2y, and that is squared. All right, plus now y squared stays as is because I'm solving for y now, so I leave y squared as is. All right, plus now I have 3 over here, so now I have 3. I have x again, and in place of x, I will have 1 minus 2y, okay? And that is being multiplied by y, all right? That's being multiplied by y, plus y is equal to 0, okay? You will get a mark for correct substitution, okay? Now, what do we have here, girls and boys? Here again, we have 1 minus 2y, right? And then 1 minus 2y, right? And then 1 minus 2y. That's what we have over here. So we're expanding, then we're going to simplify, all right? But there is also a beautiful shortcut that we can use, all right? So I square the first term, so 1 squared, right, is just 1, right? I keep that sign over there, which is minus, and then 1 times 2y is 2y. If I double it, it will be 4y, right? And then plus, and then 2y squared, 2 squared is 4, and then y squared is just y squared. All right, so that part is done. Plus y squared, I'm leaving y as is. Now look what I'm going to do. I'm going to bring that y here to the front. Okay, so it's easier for me to work with. All right, so I'm going to show you exactly what I'm doing in red. So all I'm doing is to make life easy for me. I'm multiplying this 3 by that y. Right, it changes nothing, and that I am multiplying by this bracket, which is 1 minus 2y. All right, can you see what I have here and what I have here is exactly the same, but this just makes my life so much more easier. Okay, right, let's continue. So if I multiply this in, 3y times 1 will just give me plus 3y, and then 3y times negative 2y will give me negative 6y squared, okay, plus y is equal to 0, okay. There all the dirty work is done. Now I just need to simplify accordingly, right? So let me underline everything containing y squared. So there I have y squared, and there I have y squared. So 4 minus 6, it is what? It is negative 2y, right? So here I have negative 2y squared, okay? Then I'm looking at the y's only. So negative 4y plus 3y, it is negative 1y, and negative 1y plus y, negative y plus y, it is what? Just, it is 0, okay? Then I'm looking at my numbers, all right? So here I have a number 1, okay, and that happens to be my only number. So here I have plus 1, okay? Right, is what? Is equal to 0, okay? Now I think somewhere along here, I went wrong because I should only have negative y over here, all right? So let's go and check. So I have 1. Oh, sorry, look here. So I have negative 4y plus y squared will give me 5y squared, and 5y squared minus 6y squared, it is negative y squared only, not negative 2y. So it is negative y squared only, right? So I have negative y squared plus 1. Do I want a negative y squared? No, I don't. I want it positive. What will I do? I will show my examiner that I'm multiplying by negative 1. So negative 1 times negative y squared just becomes y squared. Negative 1 times 1 just becomes minus 1. is equal to 0. What do I have here? I have a beautiful example of the difference of two squares. A perfect squared minus a perfect squared. And to answer that, I just need two brackets. All right, so I have two brackets. In my first bracket, I have y and y. And then I will have the square root of 1 is just 1. So I have 1 and 1. One bracket plus, one bracket minus. All right. And that is all equal to 0. And this takes us back to y plus 1 equal to 0 or y minus 1 equal to 0. So now y will be equal to -1 or y will be equal to 1. So I found my two solutions for y, right? Am I done? No, I'm not. I need to find out what my solutions for x is. So what do? All I do is I just take these two y values and I substitute it, right? I substitute it into equation number 3 to find out what my corresponding x values are. So here I have x is equal to 1 minus 2y as equation number 3. So I have x is equal to 1 minus 2y. So I'm first going to substitute the first y value. So I will have x is equal to 1 minus 2. What's the first y value? It is -1. All right, and this is very easy to solve. So here I have 1. So -2 times -1 is plus 2. And then x will be equal to 3. And then lastly, using this equation again, I substitute my second y value. So I say that x is equal to 1 minus 2. In place of y, I take my second y value, which is 1. So now x will be equal to 1 minus 2, and x will give me -1. And there, girls and boys, I have now found my solutions for x and y in my simultaneous equation. It's a lot of writing, but if I know step number 1, create my third equation. Step number 2, substitute that third equation into a second equation. Step number 3, find your x or your y value. Step number 4, once you found x or once you found y, sub it back into equation number 3 to solve for x or for y, okay? And that, girls and boys, has taken us through 5 crucial concepts of algebra. It is very important that we constantly practice this, okay? I want you guys to go to the DBE November 2018 paper, right, and look what else was on there for you to do. Try out on your own, and if you need help, you can obviously contact Maskey on the number 072 091 0388. And don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next lesson. Thank you.
And now we enter our next exciting chapter with the launch of Maskeyverse, an inspiring trio of innovations, our AI-powered learning companion, captivating TV content, and a vibrant playground for interactive learning, and our own dedicated app, all coming together beautifully to deliver learning outcomes through technology.